Hello, class. This is Chris Montero. Happy Sunday, everybody. My response to Module 4. I'll start in order. Catherine, I think you were first. And just very interesting your experience in relation to the transgender students. You had two personal friends who changed genders, and you were kind of like in the front seat the whole time. So, just interesting to hear about your observation, kind of like the process once they changed genders, and also the way that the campus, in a way, was kind of like a welcoming environment for them, because it makes sense. It's something that perhaps at their households they perhaps wouldn't have that support. Um, but I never thought about the whole bathroom situation here in college. I guess I never paid attention to that, but that's something that you bring up a really good point, particularly with your RA experience in the residence halls. So if a male changes to a female, well, obviously she must and should be able to use a female bathroom and should be able to live with female friends. But as far as like her roommates, but that's something that I would imagine that you have a lot of legal issues with the registrar's office, and just kind of how do you even account for that. But that's something that I'm sure that in the future we are going to start to see more of these conversations. You brought out a good example of a student that's actually taking a university to court because of it. But yeah, the housing, that's quite an experience, and a topic that should be up for discussion in the coming years. Then Glenn, so you talked about ableism. Same thing for me. That's kind of like the topic that I chose. 15% of the total population. I really dug your perspective on the TIPS program, the case study with low achieving African Americans. I mean, I really do think that the art based curriculum, it's one is a very visual system, and I think it works. It really sparks an interest in the minds of the students. Just because you are perhaps labeled as a low achieving student, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful. It doesn't mean that you're stupid. It could just mean that you're bored, in class, that you didn't find math class interesting. Art, for me, it's kind of like a theater of the mind. It's something that's extremely creative, and our youth should really take advantage of this way to learn. Education, in my opinion, it could be very systematic. Everyone learns the same things, goes to the same classes, meets the same requirements. Now, if they don't meet these requirements, if they don't pass their EOGs or whatever form of standardized testing, then they're slow. They're stereotyped. They're special needs or learning disability. And these labels are really assigned. They assign them as inferior, as people of less value, and that this assignment, this assumption, it's really placed by society. So I think that giving those students an art-based approach to really cultivate their minds in other ways. Many of these disabled members have incredible talents or extremely gifted. Just to mention a few, you have like Ray Charles, for example, one of my favorite musicians ever. Blind as a bat, but so gifted artistically, right? Frida Kahlo, Stevie Wonder, even Vincent van Gogh. He was in a psychiatric hospital. Beethoven was deaf for the last 25 years of his life. And some people consider that actually part of his best musical career was that those last 25 years when he was completely couldn't hear. So I think, ageism, you talked a little bit about that. And, I could speak from my own experience, growing up in South America, born and raised in Venezuela. We really do respect our elders, upbringing, the teachings from our parents. It's completely different. I think that here in the U.S., you see elders as inferior, as fragile, as people. I go out and I go to the malls and I go around town, and I see how sometimes they're ignored by society. People have this negative stereotype in a way. For my family, both my Cuban side of my family and my Venezuelan side of my family, like it's ran by elders. Like my abuelos, my grandparents, they run the family. They're the glue, first of all, of the family. Everything really revolves around them, and they are considered wise, talkative, really funny. So So Phyllis, you also talked about disabilities. I actually read this section, and it is impressive that they are the world's largest minorities, more than 10% of the world. And one of the ways that you could become disabled is by depression. Now, people don't understand, that depression is a serious thing. In my initial video, I talked about two of my students who had to leave this campus, withdraw from the university completely, because one was going through a serious issue of depression and the other one had a little bit of schizophrenia, kind of like the symptoms, but also depression. So yeah, you really do have a point about students who don't report their disability because they didn't report it. And but of course, I mean, they don't want to be labeled. They want to be like everybody else. They want the equal treatment. So that is interesting that you brought that up, and I appreciate your perspective. And then I know I'm going a little over, but Krista Rhodes, the social construction of disability. Access to, when you think about access, I mean, this is something that the whole world is revolved around people without a disability. From everything's built for them. So sometimes we don't understand how much privilege we have. But I was also on crutches for 3 months, just like you. And yes, rehab sucks. Is really an eye opener, and it's so hard, so hard to get around, to even drive a car. So so yeah, I like your idea about creating that board, to really let the students lead the way. And just in the sense of the students being advocates for disabled students and other people, I think that's we perhaps could find a lot of value in kind of cultivating that kind of thinking at a young age. Anyhow, with that said, have a great weekend or whatever's left of it. NBA Finals in 30 minutes. Go Warriors.